Go back.
Gentleman yields. The chair recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Butterfield, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for yielding time this morning. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize one of the most innovative jazz musicians of all time, the legendary Thelonious Monk. This legend, Mr. Speaker, was born in my congressional district in the state of North Carolina and would have turned 100 years old today. Thelonious Sphere Monk was the second of 3 children born to Thelonious Sr. and Barbara Monk on this day in 1917 in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Though Monk and his family left Rocky Mount for New York City when Thelonious was a child, scholars and fellow musicians say Monk's North Carolina roots had an important influence on the man and his music. Writer Sam Stevenson credited Thelonious Monk's Carolina roots in the Oxford American, writing that Rocky Mount's flourishing tobacco culture and rail yard was one of the largest in all of the South the year Monk was born. Stevenson speculated those railways may have inspired Monk's composition Little Rudy Tooty, which features train whistle sounds. Now, Mr. Speaker, incidentally, the city of Rocky Mount, North Carolina, which is divided between 2 counties, Nash County and Edgecombe County, and the railroad in that community is the dividing line. The dividing line is a train track, and every day the CSX train and the Amtrak train come through that community, and they have been doing that for a very long time. Those train tracks were first established in 1855, even before the Civil War, and it was established as the Wilmington to Weldon Railroad. It was the longest railroad in the entire world, consisting of more than 160 miles of track, and it came through Mr. Monk's hometown. Thelonious Monk began studying classical piano at the age of 11 and showed an early aptitude for the instrument. By the time he was 13 years old, he had won the weekly amateur competition at the Apollo Theater so many times that management banned him from re-entering the contest there in Harlem. In 1941, Monk began working at Minton's Playhouse in Harlem, where he joined the house band and helped develop the school of jazz known as bebop. Alongside fellow jazz greats Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie and Eubie Blake and Eubal Blake, Monk honed his fast and often improvised style that would later become synonymous with modern jazz. Thelonious Monk's first known recording was made in 1944 when he worked as a member of the Coleman Hawkins Quartet. Monk did not record under his own name, however, until 1947 when he played as the leader of a sextet session for Blue Note. In 1947, he married Nellie Smith, his longtime sweetheart. 2 children were born to the marriage, whom they named after Monk's parents, Thelonious and Barbara. In 1952, he signed a contract with Prestige Records, which produced pieces like Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Bag's Groove, which he recorded with Miles Davis in 1954. Now, in 1956, Mr. Speaker, Monk released his 3rd album, Brilliant Corners, which is considered by many to be his first true masterpiece. In 1957, the Thelonious Monk Quartet, which included John Coltrane, began performing regularly with tours across the United States and Europe. By 1964, Monk was popular with the mainstream audience and became one of the 4 jazz musicians ever to grace the cover of Time magazine. The years that followed include several overseas tours, but by the early 1970s, Monk was ready to give it up. He was ready to retire from the limelight. After battling illnesses for several years, Monk passed away from a stroke in 1982. Finally, Thelonious Monk, Mr. Speaker, has since been inducted into the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame and the Grammy Hall of Fame, added to the Library of Congress's National Recording Registry, awarded a Pulitzer Prize and featured on a United States postage stamp. Thelonious Monk left a legacy as one of the originators of modern jazz music. And that's why the city of Rocky Mount is so proud of their native son. They celebrated all weekend, this past weekend, in various places throughout the city, honoring and celebrating the life of this great musician. I ask my colleagues to join me today in paying tribute to an outstanding artist, Thelonious Monk, as his family, the residents of Rocky Mount, and the country prepare to celebrate his 100th birthday. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your patience in listening to these comments this morning. I yield.